India's GDP, it's cause for concern. It slowed to 5.4% in July-September. I think the projection is 7%. Is it a sign of a systemic slowdown? What are the reasons behind it? And if we are going to grow into a slower growth in the first quarter of 2025, that's what is expected. Is it a hiccup, or do you see a pattern emerging?
It's a hiccup. There is no pattern emerging. If you consider the fact that, we had a major election which lasted a very long period. That does disrupt even government spending. And we have seen that in the form of model code of conduct, which comes into play. So the spending pattern of the government itself gets slowed, right? Then, of course, we, unlike many other parts of the emerging market, are more driven by domestic pressures. One thing which has happened is that, our framework for inflation needs a readjustment. So you have seen the RBI being extremely conservative and their inflation targets, or the kind of impact that inflation has on their policy in terms of interest rate cuts, etc. They are extremely conservative. Some of that conservatism is also arising from the fact that our inflation has a very heavy weightage given to food. And it remains like that as far as the way we measure and the way things have. What has happened on the ground, though, as the recent NSSO data showed, that food as a share of consumption basket for an average Indian has actually shrunk. And in urban India, it's less than 40%. It's really 37 point something.
So Indians are spending less on food?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that has to now percolate down to the framework of the way we measure the inflation, which is CPI. That then goes into policy decisions of not just the RBI, but almost all big decisions, even in fiscal terms, right? So I think these are just processes which are underway.
Explain to me, why are Indians spending less on food? Is it because of the free food grains?
Yes. And I think this is where people don't understand when they often try and attack the 80 crore people getting free food grain as a bad thing. What has effectively happened, particularly after the pandemic, is there is a fiscalization of the food plate. Because your basic food grains like rice and wheat are, for a very large group of people, has been taken care of by the government. So the government is paying for that. The savings which you have on this has now shifted to fruits. You have had a 40% increase in food, and not just, by the way, spending, actual kilograms of eaten fruits, even for the poorest quintile. That's why these are remarkable changes that are happening in the economy. The biggest increases are happening in the most remote parts of the country.
Is this only city-based, Shamika, or is it across rural areas?
Across every district, right? It's all across the country. Every state is seeing major surge. Big rise in consumption of fruits and vegetables. Fruits in particular. Big rise in milk and milk product. Eggs, fish and meat.
Okay.
Right? So these are great things. And
Pulses?
Pulses too. Proteins are also rising. The point, though, is that overall consumption of rice and wheat is falling because people are eating more of other things, non-carbs. And the spending is therefore reflected in that way.
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.